Hello, welcome to the 4th episode of Crazy Victorian Era. This is also the second part of the video about Victorian sex. If you missed it, click above to watch it. It will help you put the other videos on this topic into context. Let's get started. Everyone likes hysteria. We've seen that Victorian women were sexually repressed. The morals of the time wanted them to be sexless, incapable of feeling pleasure, and in the unlikely event that they were able to experience any enjoyment, they were supposed to suppress it. However, there was an interesting loophole for women that allowed them to get around the repression of sexual pleasure. Being, or pretending to be, afflicted by hysteria, a condition whose symptoms ranged from headaches to epileptic episodes and verbal outbursts, and for which the prescribed remedy was pelvic massage. For Victorian women, stimulating the clitoris did not mean masturbating. It wasn't even considered a sexual act. Regarded as inferior to men both physically and emotionally, weaker and more prone to illness, most of the ailments women suffered from were attributed to some form of malfunction of the genital organs or the uterus. Since women were believed to be incapable of feeling sexual desire, hysteria became an illness completely detached from sex. They even gave a different name to orgasm. If a woman became flushed and moaned during a pelvic massage, she was said to be having a hysterical paroxysm. Doctors convinced themselves of the reassuring idea that only penetration could sexually stimulate women, so at first, in medical circles, the speculum and tampons were more controversial than a vibrator. If a woman desired clitoral stimulation, she was clearly considered hysterical, and thus the theory spread. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was found that 75% of women suffered from hysteria. But it is the scourge of our times. I would almost venture to say that half the women in all of London suffer from it. The cause lies in an overactivity of the uterus. When it manifests in its most severe form, it requires very drastic measures, confinement, even surgery. But in its milder forms, nymphomania, frigidity, melancholy, anxiety states, it is absolutely curable. Interesting. This illness spread like the common cold, perhaps because almost any female behavior could be seen as a sign of hysteria, and the cure was the doctor's magical fingers in an era when even using a bidet was considered scandalous. The clitoris was stimulated until the patient asked for it to stop, and it was a treatment that had to be repeated over time. The idea of pelvic massage comes from the Greek physician Areteus of Cappadocia, who described the uterus as an animal within an animal. According to his theory, the reproductive system, if left to itself, could move independently and strangle the woman from within. For this reason, it had to be put back in its place with massages using scented oils. These oils had to be applied with a vigorous massage around the clitoris, which produced a restorative effect on the woman. With a little musk oil, just a drop. Followed by linseed oil, and this one generously. Well then, are you ready, Mrs. Parsons? Yes, doctor, I'm absolutely ready. You see, doctor, with intense stimulation, we are able to trigger the pleasure-pain reaction that provokes the hysterical paroxysm and causes the uterus to return to its normal position. Astonishing. The female organ, as you well know, is absolutely incapable of experiencing any sensation of pleasure without the actual penetration of the male organ. And what about her anxieties? Thank you. By chance, doctor. Magnificent, magnificent. The causes of hysteria changed over the millennia, from the wandering womb of antiquity to the demonic possession of the Middle Ages. Obviously, women were more prone to possession. The vagina was considered the entry point for demons. Doctors recommended marriage, frequent horseback riding, or being massaged by a lady-in-waiting. In the Victorian era, the cause of hysteria was believed to be life in modern society and the pressures it placed on female fragility. During the Victorian period, doctors attributed hysteria to the dangerous behaviors exhibited by intellectual women. All these sewing machines and all these books were said to shatter the delicate psychological balance of women. Fortunately, treatments for hysteria had also advanced. The water cure, that is the pelvic shower. Instead of immediately resorting to vibrators, doctors began aiming fire hoses at women. Pelvic showers directed at the inner thigh were installed in all European and American spas in the mid-19th century. Women loved them and flocked to spa towns where the treatment was offered. With cramps in their hands and tired fingers, doctors were fed up with treating hysteria. They were all looking for alternative methods to speed up the process of reaching hysterical paroxysm. The first vibrator operated with a manual mechanism, and before cities began to monitor water consumption, there was a brief fad for vibrators powered by miniature water mills connected to a sink. But the real breakthrough was the steam-powered vibrator. An American doctor, George Taylor, patented the manipulator in 1869. Patients would sit on a padded table with a vibrating sphere in the center. The main market was spas and doctors with such a large clientele that it justified the expense and effort of this cumbersome device. In the end, however, doctors grew tired of shoveling coal into the vibrator's boiler. Mortimer Granville invented the first battery-powered vibrator in the early 1880s, although he stated that his machine was not to be used on the clitoris. I have avoided and will continue to avoid treating women with this machine, simply because I do not wish to be deceived nor to have others deceived by the variety of hysterical states or by those who feign the illness, he wrote in 1883. Instead of faking orgasms, Granville believed that women were faking an illness in order to have an orgasm. I catch myself imagining splitting his big bald head open like a giant axe. A sense of spasmodic anticipation, a hunger. How do you put up with this English weather? I can't sing because of this overwhelming sadness. I open my mouth and... Do you hear? Nothing. Granville's vibrator battery was quite heavy, but it was also portable. With the arrival of the 1900s, batteries became smaller and women began to buy vibrators for home use. A 1918 Sears catalog advertised a household motor with many outlets, including one for the vibrator. According to the sex toy company Good Vibrations, vibrators were mainly advertised in women's magazines up until the 1920s. According to the Antique Vibrator Museum, when vibrators began appearing in underground pornographic films in the 1920s, it became difficult to ignore their sexual function. Perhaps as a result, vibrator advertisements began to disappear from respectable publications. The sex toy industry really took off only in the 1980s. Vibrators became an integral part of everyday life. At last, the vibrator's moment of glory had arrived. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like or leave a comment. See you in the next video. Bye.